Welcome back, wrestling WWE fans. In the dim, sweat-soaked underbelly of WWE's empire, where triumphs are forged in blood and legacy, a fresh wound has torn open the heart of the Anoa'i dynasty. Roman Reigns, the unbreakable tribal chief, shattered by the sudden passing of yet another family pillar, WWE Hall of Famer Alpha Anoa'i, the wild spirit whose fire fueled generations. This isn't mere news, it's a seismic crack in the foundation of wrestling's most storied bloodline, where Roman's grief collides with the ghosts of betrayals past, pulling us into the raw, unfiltered agony of a man who thought he'd conquered every storm, only to face the ultimate thief, death claiming another piece of his soul. Please like, share and subscribe for more WWE content. Roman's breakdown came not in the roar of a sold-out arena, but in the sterile hush of a hospital waiting room, his massive frame folding into a chair as the call confirmed Alpha's quiet exit at 81, the second gut punch in mere months after Sika's departure. Tears carved silent paths down his face, the tribal chief reduced to a son mourning the uncles who raised him in the ring's unforgiving crucible. The betrayal lingered like smoke from a backfired spear. Alpha and Sika, the wild Samoans, had poured their prime into WWE's golden era, only to feel the sting of forgotten promises in their twilight years, pensions delayed, spotlights dimmed while the company chased new blood. Roman, who'd inherited that fire, now seethed in private, his grief laced with a fury that echoed boardroom whispers of loyalty discarded like yesterday's booking sheet. Grief swallowed Roman whole in the days that followed, nights blurred into dawn where he'd replay grainy tapes of Alpha's headbutts and savate kicks, the man's laughter booming through speakers that couldn't fill the void. Backstage at SmackDown, he wandered like a specter, avoiding the sympathetic nods from peers who knew the Anoa'i code, strength through silence, even as it cracked your ribs. Health crises had stalked Alpha for years, a relentless foe more vicious than any territorial brawl, the toll of decades slamming bodies on canvas, joints grinding to dust under the weight of tag team wars. Insiders recall hushed locker room talks where Alpha waved off concerns with a grin, but Roman saw the truth in his uncle's labored breaths during family gatherings, a mirror to his own leukemia battles that now felt like child's play against time's cruel advance. The scandal that bubbled beneath Alpha's legacy wasn't splashed in headlines, but simmered in faded contracts and overlooked medical bills, revelations of how WWE's machine had churned through the Samoans without a safety net, leaving families to foot the rehab tabs. Roman's tears turned to quiet vows in the gym, pounding bags until his knuckles split, channeling rage at an industry that celebrated warriors but buried their breaks. Family breakdowns hit like a family piledriver. The Anoa'i clan, once an unbreakable chain from Samoa to Stamford, frayed under wrestling's voracious appetite, holidays hijacked by house shows, bonds strained by the Rhodes' endless pull. Alpha's passing ripped open old scars for Roman, memories of arguments over missed graduations, his own children asking why daddies, uncles, were more myth than man in their lives. Real backstage dynamics shifted in the wake of the loss. Veterans like The Rock pulling Roman into shadowed corners for embraces that spoke volumes, no words needed amid the chaos of production trucks and pyro tests. Younger talents watched wide-eyed as the Chief's armor slipped, a reminder that even heads of tables kneel to the Reaper, forging unlikely alliances in the green room's fluorescent glow. Death's shadow fell heaviest during the private memorial in a sun-baked Samoan chapel, air thick with plumeria and chants, where Roman stood at the podium, voice a gravelly tremor recounting Alpha's wild tales, the time he no-sold a chair shot in Amarillo, laughing through bloodied teeth. The room, packed with tattooed kin and faded grapplers, held its breath as Roman's composure fractured, sobs mingling with the distant crash of waves. Betrayal revisited in fevered reflections, Roman poring over yellowed photos of the Wild Samoans Hall of Fame induction, a night of glory tainted by the knowledge that Alpha had wrestled through pain for belts that gathered dust. He'd confide in Joelle later, his wife the anchor in their Pensacola home, how the business's broken oaths had chipped away at the men who built it, leaving sons to mourn what might have been. Grief manifested in the ring's cold geometry, Roman's next spear a fraction slower, eyes distant as if scanning the crowd for Alpha's approving nod from the cheap seats. Fans felt it too, their "acknowledge me" chants softening to murmurs of empathy, the arena's electric hum turning elegiac under lights that seemed dimmer without another Anoa'i watching from above. Health crises became Roman's unspoken crusade, late-night scrolls through medical journals in the tour bus, vowing to amplify the voices Alpha's generation had muffled, the concussions glossed over, the arthritis dismissed as part of the game. His tears, once private, now fueled calls to union reps, a chief rallying for reforms in a world that had feasted on his family's flesh. The scandal's undercurrents rippled through family texts, cousins airing grievances over group chats about unequal shares from merch royalties, the wild Samoan's image splashed on shirts while their health funds scraped by. Roman mediated with a heavy heart, his own bloodline storyline blurring into reality, where loyalty was the true title, defended at the cost of sleep and sanity. Family breakdowns echoed in the empty chairs at Thanksgiving tables, Afa's spot unfilled beside Sika's ghost, Roman's daughters sensing the shift in their father's quiet stares at the ocean. He'd gather them for stories, voices thick with unshed tears, weaving lessons of resilience from uncles who'd traded birthdays for body slams, mending threads one hug at a time. Real backstage dynamics evolved into fragile rituals, pre-show circles where the locker room paused for a collective breath, honoring Afa with a raised water bottle toast, Roman's lead turning vulnerability into velvet steel. It was here, amid the scent of baby powder and Bengay, that betrayals were confessed, healing the fractures one raw admission at a time. Death's finality struck during a solitary drive along the California coast, Roman gripping the wheel as Afa's old entrance music played low on the stereo, the man's headbutt calls blending with radio static. Betrayal from fate itself, another family member gone, left him pulling over to let the sobs come, waves crashing like the applause he'd never hear again. Grief's tide receded slowly, Roman channeling it into a heartfelt promo on Raw, microphone trembling as he spoke of Afa's unyielding spirit, the crowd's ovation a thunderous embrace that bridged the veil. It wasn't acknowledgement they chanted, it was family, a word heavy with the weight of losses stacked like fallen foes. Health crises loomed as the next battleground, Roman testifying in virtual panels with his sisters, exposing the gaps in WWE's wellness policies that had let Afa fade without fanfare. His eyes, still rimmed red, burned with purpose, turning personal hell into a beacon for the broken bodies littering wrestling's history.